All right, let's talk about the Korean War. First and foremost, let's get some of the background information. Now, Korea is going to be occupied by Japan during World War II. Japan has really had influence over Korea all the way since the early 1900s with the Russo-Japanese War, but during World War II, particularly, the Japanese are going to come in and occupy Korea. Now, it's also important to understand that during this time, the Japanese committed a number of horrific atrocities on the Korean people. So there's really a lot of resentment towards the Japanese going on in Korea that sadly still goes up even up until today. Now, Korea after World War II, when the Japanese surrender, is going to be occupied into two different zones. The Soviets, who are also going to declare war on the Japanese right at the end of World War II, are going to occupy the northern part of Korea, so current-day North Korea, and the Americans are going to occupy the south. Now, the Soviets are going to leave Korea in 1948, while the Americans are going to leave Korea a year later in 1949. Now, they're going to divide Korea along the 38th parallel, and you can see that here in this map. Now, you know that the Soviets are communists and the Americans are capitalists, and that's exactly what's going to happen in these two different zones. The communists are going to come to power in the north, and the capitalists are going to come to power in the south. So, both are going to view the other Korea as illegitimate. So the Southerners, people in South Korea, view the entire Korean peninsula as Korea. Okay, they view that the North is in rebellion. The North views the entire Korean peninsula as Korea, and that the South is in rebellion. So the leader of the North, Kim Il-sung, at this time period, is going to be seeing all of Korea as his, or that he's in control of, and same with Ri in the South. Now, the Korean War is going to officially start June 25th, 1950. North Korea is going to invade South Korea. They're going to go over that 38th parallel and just keep on marching. They're going to be incredibly successful in their initial invasion, capturing all of South Korea except for the city around Busan. You can see that here in this map. So North Korea was just that orange area. It's going to push down into the yellow, occupy all of that, with the only exception of that tiny little area of Busan. They also would have captured Seoul, which is the capital of Korea. So this is incredibly important. When you capture a other country's capital in war, it's incredibly demoralizing, and it makes it incredibly hard for that city or that country to keep fighting. So the North is going to come in and just basically whoop up on the South. Now, the United States sees this as a problem. They are practicing the policy of containment at this time. We have to stop communism from spreading, allow it to be where it is, but do not allow it to spread. Now, we see the North Koreans, who are communists, spreading into South Korea, and this is no longer containment happening. They additionally see this as as the domino theory. Okay, so if one domino falls, pretty soon they all will fall. So we've got one country that is communist. If the Americans allow South Korea to fall, who knows what country might become communist next. So that is problematic, and they've got to do something. Now, South Korea is going to go to the United Nations for assistance, basically saying that you've got to step in, you've got to help us because we are being invaded unjustly. Something has to be done. Now, the United States, who is a member of the United Nations Security Council, is going to bring forth a resolution in support of South Korea. Now, the United States, again, previously had occupied South Korea. They also view South Korea as an alliance, within an alliance, and they do not like the communist North spreading. So they're going to propose this resolution, basically stating that the North needs to withdraw their troops. Now, the USSR is one of the 5 veto power countries on the UN Security Council. However, they're not present at this vote because they are protesting the United Nations' refusal to accept communist China as a part of the United Nations. Instead, they're accepting the government in Taiwan that had retreated after the Communist Revolution in 1949. So the USSR, the one group that really had the power to stop this from happening, to stop the UN getting involved in the situation, was not present, could not veto it as a result of their protest. Now, the UN is going to appeal for North Korea to remove their troops from the South. As you can imagine, the North refused to do this. So the United Nations is going to create an army. This army is made up of 16 different nations, but 90% of those soldiers are going to be Americans. So this is not a conflict directly by the Americans, but for the most part, it is by the Americans. It's going to be led by General Douglas MacArthur, who was a major official fighter during the war in the Pacific during World War II against the Japanese. He is going to be leading this force as well. Also important to note, MacArthur is a staunch anti-communist. He does not like the communists. So what's going to happen is he's going to get in, his troops are going to be in Busan, leading everything. Right away, there's a bit of a stalemate. He's going to call for reinforcements. As soon as those reinforcements arrive, he starts marching, okay? And he is going to push the North Koreans rather quickly back to the 38th parallel. And he was supposed to stop here. He was supposed to just put things back to the way they were before. But MacArthur is like, we're not going to do that now. We're going to keep marching. We are going to stop North Korea, get rid of this communism altogether. Now, they're going to push on anyways. So this is a step back from the theory of containment, more into the theory of rollback, getting rid of the communist regime. And this is because they fear that if they don't do something, the Chinese will come in and support North Korea, because China is now communist. So they've got to do something. They've got to push back the North Koreans, stop communism right through here. The United Nations force led by MacArthur is going to push the North Koreans clear back to the Yalu River, as you can see on the map, which is actually the border with China. So North Korea is virtually defeated at this point, which is a good win for the United Nations, and it's particularly for the United States when it comes to getting the world rid of communism. Now, this is where China is going to step in. China is going to respond by sending 25,000 troops. Now, they're going to do this for a number of reasons. Number one, they have an alliance with the Communist North. Number two is MacArthur wanted to just go in and take out China as well. We've already taken out one communist country. Let's just keep going. So China really has to step up at this point, where there's a very real possibility that they could be invaded as well. This is going to cause the UN troops to be pushed back, and they're going to be pushed back all the way back to the 38th parallel. At this time period, Douglas MacArthur petitions President Truman to allow for the United States to use the atomic bomb on China. Let's just get rid of these commies altogether. Get rid of them. We'll be good to go. Truman does not want to do this and is going to dismiss MacArthur from his duties. And this is really going to be the end of Douglas MacArthur when it comes to the military action. Major military action. As I've already stated, we're going to get to the 38th parallel, and there is going to be a bit of a stalemate. Meanwhile, up in the sky, we're going to have United States and Soviet fighter pilots going against each other right here. The interesting thing, though, with the Soviets is they're going to be in Chinese planes and in Chinese military uniforms. This is a strategy the Soviets would use throughout the history of the Cold War, and the Russians still use this today, even in their invasion of Crimea. They did not go in under Russian military uniform. They went in unmarked military uniforms. So this is a strategy the Russians will use. Additionally, the Korean War is going to be the first jet fighter battles in world history. Now, it's going to bring us to July 27th, 1953. On this date, an armistice is going to be signed, and that's going to establish a demilitarized zone at the 38th parallel, or the DMZ, pictured right through here. So this is the South Korean side looking into the North Korean side. You can see that right through here. These little houses, those blue things, are the dividing lines. So half of that building is in north, half of that building is in the south. Officially, the war is not over, even up until today in 2020. Okay, the war is still officially going on. It was just an armistice. There was no peace agreement signed. That is the Korean War, also known as the Forgotten War. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, good luck.